Steve Penny from the silvercharters.com joins us today to take a look at silver and the short-term outlook that he sees for this precious metal. This and more on this week's episode of Metal Money. I'm your host, Patrick Vieira. Steve Penny, welcome back to Metal Money. How are you doing?
Hey, Patrick, I'm doing great. Thanks for inviting me back.
I want to first start with the US dollar, and the DXY is inversely correlated somewhat with precious metals. And seeing that the US dollar is on a downward trend, do you expect precious metals to continue to rise while the US dollar may continue to fall?
Yeah, from a long-term perspective, I do continue the downtrend in the dollar to continue, and for the uptrend in the metals to resume in short order here. And you've got a chart here of the dollar, which is a really nice chart showing this clear downtrend channel going back about a year. And the thing that jumps right out to me is the series of lower highs and lower lows dating back to March of last year. And we're also trading below both key moving averages. So that's really a downtrend in the dollar by any definition. The key support levels to watch would be about just $89.21. If memory serves me correctly, that's the recent low. But then just a little bit below that at $88.25. That was the major low in the dollar back in 2018. So I think once we get below that 88.25, the downtrend in the dollar could really accelerate. However, nothing goes down in a straight line here. We are getting quite oversold. And if you look at the commitment of traders report, I think the net short position in the dollar is about as large as it's ever been. So, we could see a little bit of a dead cat bounce in the dollar. That wouldn't be surprising, but I do expect that downtrend to continue.
Okay, Steve, for this next chart, I'll pull it up for you. Let me go ahead and share it with you. On the daily chart for silver back in roughly July of 2020, we saw the 50-day moving average cross above the 200-day moving average. And at that time, we saw this cross. Silver was at about $16.86 per ounce, and today it's right around 28. Will silver continue its upward momentum in the short term, and why or why not?
Yeah, I like to say trend in motion tends to stay in motion. And I think in terms of trend, so the long-term trend in silver is up, the intermediate term trend is up, and then kind of the shorter term trend has been more sideways for the last, almost 10 months now, dating back to August. However, we are above both rising, both the 50 and 200-day moving average. So yeah, I do. I think the path of least resistance will be higher highs and higher lows going forward here. That was a really nice chart you showed. But I think the big resistance to get through is $30. And if you want to be really specific, $30.35. That was the little bit of a spike high on February 1st on the first silver squeeze push. So I think once you get above that 35, the trend could really start to accelerate to the upside in silver. And, $50 probably isn't as far off as many people think once we get through that $30 level.
Quite a few analysts, they agree on the importance of silver closing at 28, and you just mentioned a number as well. But since the peak in last August, on a daily silver price chart, we saw silver close above 28 for a few days in February and for a few days again in May. And on a weekly chart, silver did not close above 28 at all. How important is it short term to see silver consistently closing at $28 or higher?
Yeah, like you could definitely draw a line right at $28. Sometimes technical analysis is more of an art than a science. So there's some subjectivity in there. Personally, for my taste, I like to use the extremes. So like the body of those candles is most of the candles is about $28, but there's a lot of wicks that go up to, up near 30 and $30.35. So really that's the big level for me, is just getting above that whole resistance area, which is 30, 35. So 28 is significant, but it's, I put $30 since it's so close as the main level to watch.
How high could you see prices go with this bull leg of the price action?
A couple $1,000s now. I'm just kidding. No, there's plenty of people saying I feel like some people make sensational statements trying to get like clickbait or whatever. So I'm just kidding. But yeah, I think $50 is a very sensible intermediate term target. If you go back historically, whenever gold makes a brand new all-time high, like it did last year, silver almost always follows suit and makes a new all-time high not long afterwards. So the previous all-time high in silver is right around $49. So I think $50 is a very reasonable intermediate term target. And then over the long term, my targets are much higher than that, into the triple digits, but that's a few years down the road.
Okay. A few years down the road. Okay. How about resistance levels? Where do you see the next resistance level for silver?
Well, $30.35. So we talked about that. And then once we get through there, there's really not much until you get to $35 and change. And then above there, there's I believe $42. I can pull it up and get the
Sure.
exact number on the weekly chart here. Yeah, 35.45 and then $44.27. That was another big major kind of intermediate term top. And then after 44.27, then you've got 49.82. 49.82 was the peak in 2011.
Steve, looking at that same prior chart, we see from March 31st of this year, the day of the Wall Street silver raid, that we have seen a pretty nice, steady, convincing uptick movement in silver. Has the Wall Street silver movement really affected the short term silver price? Or may I ask, what do you see as being attributed to the short term rise in the silver price?
Well, it's always hard to tell what the reason why something is happening. That's the part of the beauty of technical analysis is just price and volume tells you what's happening. You don't necessarily need to understand why, but yeah, I think they have certainly had an impact on the silver market as a whole. And to be honest with you, when this all started, I was a little bit skeptical. I thought, is this just going to be a quick flash in the pan and then it goes away and it actually does more harm than good? But I mean, I've gotten to know those guys a little bit, and they're persistent. They're not going anywhere, and their community is growing, and they're reaching a wider audience. So whatever effect they're having, it's certainly positive.
Okay, yeah, totally agree with you there. I was also myself, I was kind of wondering, because if you've been in this for a while, you've seen the rise and fall so many times. You get your hopes up, and next week it's kind of smashed down again, and so you're kind of wondering, will the Wall Street guys be there through thick and thin? And it does look like that they're there. So good job with them.
Yeah, and I think I think maybe some people kind of look at these silver squeeze movements as like a one-time event, like hey, we're doing it on this date and then expect the price to shoot. No, this is a marathon. It's not a sprint. So I think that the mindset is right. Let's gradually take physical metal out of the market and eventually kind of overcome this what I call a false paper price, and where the true supply demand of actual physical metal will eventually set the price. So I think that's where this is headed, but it's a marathon, not a sprint.
False paper price. All right. Some good words. We'll remember that. Steve, but with the latest price rally, is the short term bear market over?
It is looking so. I am very confident that we have seen the lows. Back in gold, on gold, we had a double bottom at 1675,
Mm.
and since then, gold has been in a this really clear downtrend channel going back to August of last year. Well, just this past month, we broke out above that downtrend channel. That's really the big resistance I've been watching for months now. So we got a monthly close above that. And whenever we get a breakout, my eyes go to the bottom of the chart and I look at volume, and that's happening on above average volumes. That adds confirmation to the breakout. We've also seen a similar breakout in GDX. That's the senior gold mining ETF. And that's very encouraging because the big money, the institutions, that they like to buy the senior gold miners. That's where they start. So getting a breakout there first is very encouraging. And then GDXJ followed. And now I'm looking for the more speculative components of the sector to follow suit, and specifically the junior silver miners and silver. So all that to say, yes, I do expect the uptrend to resume. And I think the bear market is over.
Do you think we've seen the end of the silver price consolidation?
I do, yeah. Now, let me throw a caveat out there that gold has moved pretty far, pretty fast, as have a lot of the mining stocks. So nothing goes straight up here. And in fact, I think we're probably due for just a little short-term pullback. But the way I'm viewing these markets, I don't give advice, but from my perspective, dips are opportunities. So I'm going to be looking to scale in on dips. And what's interesting here, I'm looking at your Wall Street silver chart there that goes right back all the way to the kind of far left of the chart. And you see we broke out above the 200-day moving average there, and then kind of grind sideways right above that 200-day, back tested it, and then boom, went off to the races. Well, that similar setup is what we're seeing on a lot of this mining stocks right now, specifically the kind of like the mid-tier silver miners. They just reclaimed their 200-day moving average. Now they're kind of consolidating right above that 200-day, and that tends to precede a really sharp move. So that's what I'm looking for, and there's a lot of similarity between that silver chart and some of the mining stocks right now.
Steve Penny, we thank you for your time and explaining some of the movements that we're seeing in silver, and we hope we can do this again real soon.
You bet. Thank you so much for inviting me on.
There you go, Steve Penny, making us all a penny wiser. As always, leave your thoughts in the comments section below, and remember to keep it liquid, keep it real, and I'll see you on the next episode of Metal Money.